Hello and welcome back to the Wasteland, everybody. Today we're doing another build. This is the full Beast Mode Unarmed build, which is a very strong build in Fallout. This is going to be another one of those overpowered builds that we're going through, and it's just some of my favorite ways to build an unarmed character. So, for anybody who's never tried unarmed in any of the Fallout games, especially New Vegas, it is incredibly powerful. I'll explain why here in just one second, but first up we have to start out our character and we're gonna have to pick our special stats. I decided to go with this, so we're rocking 7 strength. You don't need any more than 7 to get up to 10, and unarmed does benefit from strength. It's similar to melee. You don't really need to go this high if you don't want to, because you can get +1 from the implant, which can take you up to 8 with this, and then you also get +2 from reinforced spine at the end of Old World Blues. That will take you up to the 10. You pretty much can always get +3 on any build. If you don't think you need it this high, you could drop a few points here. Perception, we're just going to go with 5. We don't really need that much perception unless we're going with better crits, and crits do affect unarmed, so I would kind of recommend going with that. If you're not really interested in going with crits, like let's say you're going with an unarmed weapon that doesn't have a high crit modifier, you don't need it this high, but a lot of the best ones do have pretty high crit modifiers. Going with 9 endurance, you're going to be up close and personal. You might as well be tanky, plus it allows you to grab every implant in the game, so that's really nice. 1 charisma, you don't really need that much charisma. There's not really that many good perks tied to charisma anyway in this game. 5 intelligence, because you don't really need any more than that to max out your character. Even if you just want to completely 100% your character, you can do it just with this. And then the rest of your skills you can put into agility and luck. This is what I did with mine. You could go with more luck for more crit chance and have an easier time in the early game if you want to rush casinos to get extra money. There is a couple pretty good unarmed weapons that you can buy, like the 2-Step Goodbye, Embrace the Mantis King, and Grease Lightning. Grease Lightning is going to be a little bit more difficult to get to because you will need to go into like the Brotherhood bunker for that. Traits are kind of your choice with this because you could pick quite a lot of different traits. There are some standout ones if you just want some of the strongest ones. Skilled is really good because it gives you a huge buff in the early game, and the downside is pretty minimal. Built to Destroy is really good with unarmed because most unarmed weapons have good item health even in the early game. Things like boxing tape have an insane amount of item health, so even if you just end up having to use that in the early game, you'll be fine, and the extra crit chance is pretty worthwhile, as well as if you plan on getting jury rigging, you can fix up every unarmed weapon with a different unarmed weapon, any other unarmed weapon, so that's really good. You could also go with Wild Wasteland too, because then you could get the, I guess, kind of unique version of Fist of the Rar with Fist of the North Rar. It doesn't actually change the stats or anything, but it is an option if you want to be taking it, so there is that, and it can just be pretty silly overall. For the tag skills, the only ones that you kind of need here are like unarmed, so that you can actually just hit harder in the early game. And then I chose survival because usually I play on like the very hardcore. So it does help with that. It also helps if you want to rush like Radchild. If not, you can kind of pick whatever you'd like. Repair is a good tag skill if you want to go with it. It's not really necessary for unarmed because, again, unarmed weapons actually have really high item durability. And right out the gate, unarmed is actually a pretty solid strat. Even if you just need to be using your bare hands, if you tag unarmed, you are guaranteed to get boxing tape. You can also buy this from Chet if you need to. Boxing tape is fine. It doesn't really do that much damage, but it has a ton of item durability, and it's perfectly okay to be beating up on like powder ganger, geckos, some of the early game enemies. It's not that bad. A much better weapon would be getting brass knuckles or spike knuckles though, and there are a couple of ways you can get this because powder gangers can have those, so if you end up fighting them, then you can just take them off of their body, which is really awesome, especially because spike knuckles can be repaired with brass knuckles and they're just a straight upgrade. You could also run over to Prim if you run into the casino and you run to this back area. You can steal a pair of spike knuckles here. There's also like a Silent 22 that you can steal from here too, which is kind of funny. Not really relevant to this build, but the spike knuckles can carry you basically through the rest of the game. Honestly, just regular spike knuckles are really powerful in this game. However, if you want to go for more of the strong weapons, let's talk about that and what kind of endgame weapons we're kind of going for. So I mentioned the Fist of Rar, or the Fist in the North Rar. This one can be obtained in Lonesome Road. You do have to kill Rar. You probably don't want to really rush this, especially if you're going with an unarmed only build. You could still do it. You could still absolutely do it if you go with like Super Slam. It's actually kind of strong that way. And the Fist of Rar is a very solid weapon. It's a Deathclaw gauntlet. It's got really high damage, really high crit damage, really good durability. It also counts as a quest item too, at least the hand does. So you can actually take this into Dead Money if you would like, which is kind of crazy. It makes it so Dead Money is really easy. Dead Money is really easy for unarmed builds too. If you've never went there before, just the Bear Trap Fist is insanely strong because it has just some of the best attacks and it has bonus limb damage, so you just rip the ghost people right apart. To get this into Dead Money, all you gotta do is just take the hand into Dead Money, and then the casino can't take it away since it counts as a quest item. Then go to the workbench and then just fashion this because it doesn't require anything else. Then you got a super powerful weapon, does tons of damage. It's just really, really good. It's also really easy to get weapon repair kits if it ends up getting damaged, but it does have decent item HP, so you might not even have to worry about that. You could go for Love and Hate. Love and Hate is the unique spike knuckles. You can find these just north of Good Springs. You will either have to get through the Kaz doors or go around, which is also kind of dangerous because there's Deathclaws in the area, or you can go like all the way around from Vegas and head into Bonnie Springs. But then there's fire geckos too, also a little bit dangerous. And then you also have to take these off of some jackal leaders. One of them has a trail carbine and reinforced metal armor, so he's kind of tough. The other one has combat armor, and she's got Love and Hate, and she's also got plasma grenades. If you can kill her, then you can get Love and Hate, and Love and Hate I think is one of the best go-to weapons throughout most of the game, especially if you just want it for cleaning up smaller enemies. Since it has really high item HP, it does really good damage. It's a sneak-in weapon too, so if you want to sneak these into the casino, I think they're some of the best weapons that you can sneak in. You could also go for Pushy. Pushy is pretty strong too. Pushy you can just get up in the Ruby Hill mines. You will have to fight your way through some lake larks, but those aren't too bad, especially if you can sneak up on them, then you're pretty good to go, because like in a one-on-one fight, you should win at pretty much any level. Their sonic attacks are dangerous at a distance, but once you're right up next to them, then you're probably a whole lot more dangerous than they are. This can just be found on a dead prospector. This is the unique Displacer Glove. Really strong weapon. Only requires 2 strength to wield effectively too. You could also go with Embrace the Mantis King. That one's really good. You can just buy this one from Mick and Ralph's. So again, if you're going with high luck, you could rush the casinos, get a bunch of money there, go over to Mick and Ralph's, buy this. It is going to cost you quite a bit, but it's not the most expensive Gunrunner's Arsenal weapon. Embrace the Mantis King is very strong. It has a very high crit chance. You can actually have, I believe, 100% crit chance with this, or dang near close to 100% crit chance if you have like Finesse, 10 Luck, and then also things like Ninja, Light Touch. Those all work too, depending on how you would like to build your character. And then the last weapon I recommend here, although there is plenty of other ones, like I said, there's Two-Step Goodbye, Ballistic Fist, things like that. Unarmed is actually quite flexible as to which weapons you want to be using. Last one I'd recommend though is the Superheated Saturnite Fist. You can get this one in Old World Blues, which is probably one of the easier DLCs to rush. You will need to go and do the Toaster side quest so that he can actually get the upgrades, and then you have to take a Saturnite Fist. You can find these all over the place in Big Mountain though. You're bound to kill some lobotomites that have them. Take it to the Toaster and then he'll superheat this. This does weaken the overall item durability of the Saturnite Fist, but it does also make it so it hits quite a bit harder and does fire damage. And it's probably the best weapon to pair with the Pyromaniac perk, which is really, really strong. So now we picked our weapons, let's talk about what armors you would like to wear. You could wear a couple different armors here depending on how you would like to fight this. Light armor is very effective if you just want to be getting up close and personal really fast, especially if you plan on taking Light Touch or Travel Light or both of them. That is really strong for an unarmed build. In the light armors, you have some really good choices here. The Sierra Madre Reinforced Armor is solid if you just want defense. You could go with Joshua Graham's armor if you want crit chance. That one's kind of better for like a gunslinger build, but it still can work on an unarmed build. You could also go with Ulysses Duster. That one's a little bit better for an unarmed build, is it just kind of protects you a little bit more than like Joshua's, and it's still for the crit chance. Or you could go with any of the Courier Dusters that you get at the end of Lonesome Road. Those are all kind of endgame armors. If you want to rush something that's pretty good early on for light armor, you could go to Vault 34 and find one of the vault suits there, or one of the security armors there, which does just have good stats. It's just good armor. It doesn't really have any bonuses to it, but it's just solid. I think medium armor is okay with unarmed. I kind of like light or heavy a little bit better than like medium, but you could still go with like the elite riot gear, the advanced riot gear, really any of the riot gears, or you could rush to Zion, get the Desert Ranger armor there. That one's really solid too. It's got really good defense. Then if you're going to go with heavy armor, I usually just like going with the heaviest armor, so the Remnant's Power Armor is my favorite for this. There are some other decent ones though too, especially if you end up doing like Lonesome Road and you side against like Legion or NCR or both, because like the Sierra Madre Power Armor is really strong since you can regen pretty fast, as well as the armor of the 87th Tribe is pretty good too for unarmed. So now we got our armor and our weapons set up. Let's go over perks, and which perks do you want to be taking with this build. So first up we have Super Slam. Super Slam is just a very strong perk for melee or unarmed. It makes it pretty overpowered right away. This is technically better on like two-handed melee weapons because they have a higher knockdown chance. What this does is anytime that you hit an enemy with melee or unarmed, there's a 15% chance that you knock them down. This is always 15% chance for unarmed. For melee, it's up to 30% chance if it's a two-handed weapon, but there's no two-handed melee weapon or anything like that. Paralyzing Palm can be a pretty good one too, because if you just punch something and it can't fight back for 30 seconds, you're going to kill it, really, regardless of what you're using. This is also kind of what makes unarmed so overpowered, even if you want to go with like some of the weakest weapons or no weapons at all and you just want to go completely barehanded. It's pretty easy to just knock something down or smack it down with like Super Slam and then just keep punching it until Paralyzing Palm kicks in. and you can win pretty much any 1v1 fight in the game. Piercing Strike is another really good perk to add to this build. It makes it so pretty much all of your unarmed and melee attacks now have armor piercing on them by 10 points. That's pretty good. Stonewall is another really good perk with this one. It just makes it so you don't get knocked down. Very good at fighting certain enemy types. Implant GRX is just a very solid perk if you want to be taking it on any build, and since this one has so high endurance, you can grab this at level 30. Pretty much gives you the Sand Devastan from Cyberpunk. Very, very strong on unarmed and melee builds. Really strong on any build, honestly. It's, I think, the best perk in the entire game. Pyromaniac is really strong with an unarmed build if you plan on going to the Superheated Saturnite Fist. 50% more damage to that sucker is really good. It doesn't really affect too many weapons, though. If you're going with like a mixed unarmed and melee build, you get a couple more like the Shish Kebab. But generally speaking, you're going to be sticking with like the Superheated Saturnite Fist, because I think the only other one affected by that is like the Sterilizer Glove, which is just not very good. Ninja is really strong with this too. Extra crit chance with all unarmed is nice. Although Ninja is kind of bugged and it's not as strong as it should be, but it is still strong, so that's good. And then Slayer is fantastic with any sort of unarmed or melee build. Attacking faster is really good. I'd prioritize all of these perks, and then you can also go with some quality of life perks too, depending on what else you're building towards. If you're going to the light build, you could go with Travel Light and Light Touch. Toughness is always a really strong perk to be throwing on any build because you just get tankier. Same thing goes with like Life Giver if you just want a little bit more HP. Rad Child is really strong too if you want better health regeneration, especially in the early game, but you will be sacrificing a little bit of your special stats to kind of trigger that. Them's Good Eating is also a really good perk for making money and just having some of the best healing items in the game in terms of like healing over time. And then your build is pretty much set. So how strong is this build? Well, in the early game, it's really, really strong because generally speaking, you kind of beat up on everything and you're not using up ammo for anything. So if you want to pair this with guns, you absolutely can, or explosives, you can. In the mid game, very strong as well because it's pretty easy to rush one of the DLCs and you could get like the Superheated Saturnite Fist. You could rush one of the other options that you can buy. You could get the Desert Ranger armor and be really strong there. And then late game, you're kind of unstoppable tank because usually you can go with either heavy armor or light armor, and your light armor you can just outpace everything, get close, use your VATS, use your special attacks in VATS. I should have mentioned that too. The higher the unarmed you got, the more VATS attacks you have, and once you get like cross attacks, it does do a lot of damage. You can also rush dead money with this really easy too because the Bear Trap Fist is kind of insane for unarmed builds, at least in that DLC. Outside of that DLC, it's not really that crazy. It's kind of just okay, but still very strong in the DLC. So if you want to get rich from like the gold bars there, or if you just want to rush through that and get all the XP from it, you absolutely can. You could also rush the Dead Money Casino, which is the most profitable casino in the game too. So unarmed can be kind of easy mode if you're okay with being up close and personal. Unarmed has actually been really solid throughout the Fallout games in general. Tell me your thoughts on the unarmed build. How do you like it? Have you ever tried an unarmed build? Are you going to try it after this? It is pretty powerful, and it's honestly quite satisfying in this game. I really do enjoy unarmed. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye, everybody.